All right. Good morning, everyone. This is meeting of the Environment Subcommittee, and we are here to discuss House Bill 636, School Buildings, Drinking Water Outlets, Elevated Level of Lead, Safe School Drinking Water Act. Now, this is a bill that we had a hearing on last year, but I don't think we dug into the bill in subcommittee. The Senate did pass it last year, and then we probably would have gotten to the point where we considered it, but COVID intervened. So it's back before us now. We had been holding it because it's got a good sized fiscal note, but we got the okay recently to move forward, despite the fiscal note and consider it. So.
Great.
Oh, hi, Sheila.
Hi, I'm so sorry for being late.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, no excuse. Coming from me, right?
Yeah, all right. Whatever Carl said, right?
No, not at all.
No. Anyway, so Kristen, could you just review what the bill does and the amendment that we've got for it?
Sure, good morning. So the bill would redefine elevated level of lead to mean a lead concentration in drinking water that exceeds 5 parts per billion. Currently, that standard is tied to EPA guidance, which if that's really for tests that would reveal levels above 20 parts per billion. It also would require if a prior test that was conducted by a school reveals levels that are more than 5 parts per billion, but less than 20 parts per billion before the effective date of this bill, that the school would have to go back and remediate those outlets that tested in that in-between standard. And then we have an amendment that the chair of appropriations sent over, and it's general intent language. Thought I had it up. So basically, it would just say that this act may not be construed to alter the priority in awarding grants under the Healthy School Facility Fund. That fund does award grants to schools for remediating drinking water outlets. Right now, anything above 20 parts per billion has priority, but it does award grants for remediation for levels between 5 and 20. But they're not the priority. And then that fund also funds other types of school facility issues like heating, ventilation, and things like that.
Yeah, so the types of, so again, this focuses on remediating drinking water outlets in schools where the lead level is between 5 and 20 parts per billion. And the remediation measures can include providing bottled water, installing those bottle refill stations, I'm reading just from the fiscal note, replacing just the affected outlets, or replacing, I guess if necessary, replacing the plumbing for an entire school building. And as Kristen said, the funding would come from the Healthy School Facility Fund. And the amendment.
Just a point of clarification, the bill doesn't actually direct anything about the Healthy School Facility Fund. That's just a fund in prior years that has been amended that would allow these types of projects to be funded. But the bill doesn't have any, codified changes under that fund.
So a school system, Kristen, would have to apply for funding?
That's correct.
Okay, which is administered by the state, by MSDE, is that right?
The IAC.
Oh, IAC, Interagency Construction.
School construction, I think.
School construction, right.
So this fund could be used as a vehicle to expenses.
Yes, the chair of appropriations through this amendment wanted to be sure that this bill doesn't award the priority in awarding grants under the fund. So the priority, and Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, is when you have on the lead side, when you have lead in water that's higher than 20 parts per billion, because obviously that's much worse than what this bill applies to, which is between 5 and 20 parts per billion. So the funding, the remediation that be required under this bill would in awarding grants, the IAC would continue to give priority for above 20 parts per billion.
Right.
And then, yeah. And
What's
sponsor,
the bill number again? Do we have,
636.
yeah.
the number again?
636.
636. So the bill sponsor, Delegate Solomon, believes that there's enough money in this fund. He says, and there isn't any written testimony for them, but MAID, which rarely comes before us, was the Maryland Association of Boards of Education. According to the sponsor, is neutral. I asked him to get sort of some confirmation for us. I don't think he's been able to get it yet, but yeah, so that's what the bill would do. The Senate cross-file this year, I don't think has been acted on. Senator McCray has the cross-file. Yeah. How do folks feel about this?
I missed my friend Andrew Castley that was on this committee that had a lot of input and experience with the school system. And we've debated this bill really for years. And it is an issue that needs to be addressed in a systematic way. We can't do it all at once. Much like the vaccinations right now. I mean,
right.
Similar type of situation. And I'm at the point, any level of lead is not acceptable and we got to work to reducing it, but it's all a matter of risk. So, and certainly the 20 parts per billion need to be addressed first. But.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that this is such an important bill because as Delegate Otto said, there is no safe level of lead and we have to make sure that our children are not being poisoned with lead. And I think it does, provide enough flexibility to local school systems and as to how they handle these situations, particularly with the appropriations amendment to ensure, what the priorities are. I think that this is a good bill.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to move the amendment.
Okay. So second?
Second.
All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so do folks feel comfortable moving forward with the bill at this point?
Can I ask one small question? Because I can't. I don't have the bill in its entirety,
That's right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had the amendment, but I'm just trying to figure out how this affects school systems that have known lead but does not use the water.
Baltimore City Schools.
I
I
mean,
had one in my district too, so.
yeah, I mean, they're in all old schools. It's not just Baltimore City schools. They're just all old
Right.
school buildings where, because of the pipes, water is not used. They have the water coolers for water and things like that. So I'm wondering, in the non-use, I know they still have to test it because I think it's like people still wash their hands like in a bathroom with the water per se. I'm wondering how this affects that, in that really the best case scenario for most of these types of buildings is they just have to be, really kind of torn down and just kind of rebuilt. So I'm just curious about how this affects them as it relates to remediation.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I'm looking at the bill, and if I understand this right, I think
What's up?
it'd be fine because even in the existing code, it says remedial measures can include permanently shutting off or closing access to the drinking water outlet. So if a school system is not using those drinking water outlets, then I think that that's covered, if I understand right.
And also, if I could add that the Department of the Environment can issue a waiver to schools from even the testing requirements when bottled water is the only source of drinking and food preparation. That's in current law.
Okay, so I guess, yeah, so I guess Delegate Boyce, the answer is,
Yeah. Mhm.
Delegate Roof said
It
there are
would-
number of different options here.
And it wouldn't change anything that currently occurs in those schools.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
So can I ask a question?
sure.
So I think this is something needed. Definitely needs to be discussion on this. This is something that probably should have been addressed years ago.
Yeah.
But it's the way things work. Is there a rush to get this thing into the Senate by Monday? Or can we move it to the full committee and then have a couple of times where it can be debated amongst the whole committee instead of just us, and then move it over? If the Senate's not moving their version, anyway, we're guaranteed, we'll be able to get a hearing over there of some sorts without a cross file.
Mhm.
They do have a cross-file, and so it's an EHE. So EHE, I don't think holds hearings on cross-filed bills, but they have had a hearing on the bill.
But it's only if it passes over, right?
No, if they've held a hearing, they would hold another hearing, but it's the same. It's, you can look at that two different ways. That, one way is that for timing, they wouldn't have to hold a hearing because they have had a hearing.
Right.
So if something came over later and they had the will to move it, I don't think that would be an issue with timing. But that takes, some conversations for sure. But historically, if they've had a hearing,
I guess, for me, the fiscal note on anything is always a concern, but I don't think it should be a concern as much in this, because we're talking about our kids. But I would like to have the bill vetted by my facilities people to see what we do. Maybe there's some things in the bill, even if it doesn't pass both chambers, that they can start to practice on their own, because you don't have to legislate good behavior. Sometimes you do, but I have no problem moving this to full committee. I just don't want to just rush this thing through today, just so we could say, hey, we got it in the Senate by Monday night, without.
Yeah, Delegate Anderson, I guess since we got the green light on this, the thought was, recently,
Right.
if we can get it over to the Senate in time, but it's not like, anyone's saying, no, it has to, the subcommittee has to
Right.
this morning or anything. So, but Delegate Otto, did you have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think, as I recall in the past debates on this bill, is more on that 5 per billion versus the 20, and the impact it was going to have physically and physically of doing that would need to be done. And that was more the challenge than people wanting to reduce the lead levels.
Yeah.
The fiscal note, is there a revised fiscal note with these amendments?
No, I don't think this will affect the fiscal note.
This one just showed like 300,000 or 286,000, I think.
Yeah, that was for MDE's costs. They said they would have to hire a few individuals.
Oh, well, that doesn't include what the school systems would have to do.
Correct, it does not.
But we weren't mandating them their action. We were providing that fund.
Yes,
Is that what I understand with the bill?
right. That's right. This Healthy School Facility Fund.
There will be grants available for them to address issues that they
Right.
find.
Oh, Kristen, remind me, does this? Oh, okay, it does. Never mind. I was going to ask, does this specify a deadline for getting this work done? And it does. Page 5, it says, by August 1st, 2022, the school shall take appropriate measures to remediate an outlet described in the bill.
So
But
it
that-
is,
But that doesn't mean they have to redo the pipes or anything. They can just remediate it by shutting it off and providing bottled water or water stations like we have here.
yeah.
Right,
And we can't
That's right.
use the water fountains here right now, I guess.
right. Yeah, and it says, let's see, it applies to a drinking water outlet for which a test sample has been analyzed by June 1st of this year.
And you say MABE is sort of neutral on it now?
That's what the sponsor said. I said, can you, since they MABE did not submit testimony, I guess I honestly can't remember where the verbal testimony, but I asked the sponsor to get like an email confirmation, and as of last night, he was working on that.
Yeah, I guess my biggest reservations is Mako's still unfavorable or was initially and
Right.
and the concerns they have, but we need to move forward with some kind of program.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is
Mr.
it,
Chair?
we move
Well-
forward? Sorry, Kristen, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure the subcommittee is aware too, that this is a jointly assigned bill. So anything, that this committee needs to act and appropriations will need to act too. If the desire is to move the bill, just to understand that it has to go through 2 committees for timing purposes.
I'm comfortable with moving the bill.
Okay.
Get the motion.
Delegate Stewart?
Yeah, I'm happy to move it. But I was just going to say, I think it's above my pay grade in terms of the timing and whether or not we do this before or after crossover. I just wanted to say, I think this is a really, really important bill. I'm excited to see us before us. There have been a recent number of really high profile studies, like in the last 5 years or so, about the connection between lead exposure and crime rates, because lead in children basically increases decreases impulse control, increases learning disabilities. It's a compelling study that came out that for every $1 you spend on lead prevention in children, you yield almost $2 back because of the crime rate decrease that you get years later when the kids grow up. So I think this is a really, really important topic because we're always talking about trying to reduce crime and keep criminals off the streets and everything. I think this actually could be one of the most important crime prevention bills we have before us all session. So I'm happy to move it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, and
I'll second the motion.
Okay. So, yeah, I just wanted to add Delegate Stewart. I mean, it's certainly, lead clearly has impact on cognitive abilities of children, of youth, impairs their educational, impacts their educational attainment. I just got a text from the sponsor who said, let's see, he said he tried to, about MABE, he said he tried to get John Williams, who's the executive director, to email him, but the sponsor forwarded to me just now a text that John Williams had sent to Jared Solomon earlier saying, we're definitely not going to oppose or block in any way as local school systems continue to test, report, and remediate school drinking water outlets with detectable lead in accordance with federal standards and the state law passed in 2017. MABE looks forward to securing the state and local funding required to comply with even stricter standards under this legislation to guarantee safe drinking water for all students in every school within the reasonable times and other provisions of this bill. That's what the boards of education, their association, is saying. Okay, I'm sorry. So the bill is amended, has been moved and seconded. Delegate Anderson, do you feel, how do you feel? Did you still want to check in with your school?
If you want to move it to the full committee, go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I mean, that's something,
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
my concern still, the purpose and what we need to do, as long as we're providing some kind of mechanism to assist the jurisdictions to comply with it, that's my biggest concern. I don't want an unfunded mandate that
Exactly.
we're out
Exactly.
there
Right.
that we're not doing some good.
Yeah, I hear you, and
And I'm not seeing the verbiage to make me feel the most comfortable that that's taking place, but what our discussion has been with
Mhm.
fund and grant availabilities,
Let's
Yeah.
make some verbiage.
I think you feel my pain or my concern.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess, well, the reason why I'm just hesitating a little bit is that there is this Healthy School Facility Fund that school districts can apply for. I mean, they can also apply for remediating school outlets where the lead is even higher, 20 parts per billion.
Yeah.
That's the higher priority. And then just remind me, HVAC, other significant facility issues such as HVAC and mold problems, schools can also apply to that. And
And I think those may have priority too in funding over the plumbing types of
Okay.
Yeah.
remediation. So there are other types of projects that could be awarded funding as well. This isn't requiring funding for the remediation that would require under the bill, but a school is able to apply to that fund for a award.
yeah, so Delegate Idle, I guess, there's, without seeing any numbers about,
So
what's-
did we have a deadline of 2022 for something? What was that?
Yes. August,
Describe when you read that.
yep, it's August 1, 2022 is the deadline for taking some remediation, which can be,
What was the testing in the bottled water, or if that was necessary, or
say that again?
that was basically the testing to find out if there's a problem to start with, and then the remediation could be the bottled drinking water or something close.
Right, it could be as limited as just provide.
And that's sort of easy to accomplish.
Yeah, right. So, okay. Any further questions about the bill as amended? All right, well, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bill passes. Great. Thank you very much. And we did it with time to spare too, so Delegate Anderson, if you've got any of those donuts you're talking about, we'd be happy.
They're virtual.
Just,
Hey.
they're all outside your doors. So-
I've already eaten two of my
Okay,
virtual.
I'm gonna look right now, so.
Ju-
Okay.
Just gives me time to walk over to the House Office building before 10 o'clock. See